Well, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Redskins Park. Today's an exciting day for the franchise because we really feel today the Redskins are going to get better. Before we go forward, I want to just give you a little bit of the history with this young man that to my left. I was fortunate to have worked with his brother and his father for a number of years with the Raiders. About 10 years ago, I was one of the people who called the 49ers to recommend him for his general manager job with the 49ers. Last offseason, Scott developed a scouting service, and I'm sure we were one of the first teams to sign up for that service. At the end of this year, in conversations with Scott, found out that he was interested in getting back into the saddle, getting back to doing what is in his blood and what he really wants to make his life work. And from that conversation, we're able to come to an agreement and bring Scott to the Washington Redskins. He's going to be in charge of all the personnel department and the personnel on this team. We picked Scott because of his great track record, but really the way he describes a football player, the intangibles that he's looking for in a football player, and the winning traits that he has helped other teams acquire. With that, I'd like to introduce our new general manager, Scot McCloughan.
Thank you very much for all you guys coming out, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Snyder for the opportunity to come to a storied organization like this. You know, 5 world championships, many Hall of Fame football players, a really special fan base. And then I'd like to thank Bruce Allen as well for giving me this opportunity. I'm very excited about it. We got some work to go ahead of us, but that's why we do this. That's what the NFL is all about. If it was easy, everybody would be successful, and it's not. I felt really comfortable coming through here doing the interview process last week. I've known, of course, Bruce for a while, but sitting down with Mr. Snyder for about 5-6 hours face-to-face and just seeing the passion he had in his eyes, you know, the passion for the fan base, the passion for winning. And if he said it one time, he said it 20 times. That's all that matters, winning games here. And that really intrigues me because I've been lucky to be with, 2 to 3 organizations, been to a couple of world championships, won a couple of world championships, and seeing how it's been done right. And it's not about just me. It's about the individuals around this building, from the personnel standpoint, from the coach's standpoint. And I'm very excited, looking forward to it. There's a lot of work ahead of us, but I strive for that. I'm going to outwork the next guy no matter what. I'm going to have great communication with everybody in the building that matters in personnel and in coaching. And we make decisions. We'll make them as a group. And we'll take ownership for the players. And we're going to get better. I can't promise you it's in 2 weeks, but I can promise you this, starting today, I'll do everything in my power to make this organization as strong as it possibly can be.
Say your name and your affiliation, guys, when you ask your question.
Tarek El-Bashir, CSNWashington.com. Hi, Scott. Welcome to D.C.
Thank you.
After spending the 2014 season out of the game, what was it about the Redskins, this situation, and this time that told you this was the right time to return to the NFL for you?
Well, like I said, I've known Bruce for a long time, and my father's worked with him. I respect my father tremendously, and the one thing about Bruce is, his entire life's been football. My entire life's been football because of our family members. Knowing his character, knowing his importance of winning, and him being around winners as well, we go hand in hand. Me doing some personnel stuff, him doing the president side stuff, I think it'll be a great marriage. I'm looking very forward to working with Jay. I know Jay's family for a long time. Quality people, quality football people. So we're getting football people in the building, and that's what Mr. Snyder wants, and I think you get enough good opinions together and you work hard enough together, you're going to make more hits than misses. The organizations just get stronger and stronger each year.
As best you can you kind of walk us through the timeline as to who reached out to you and when that happened and when the decision to come here was made for you?
Well, Bruce kind of mentioned it, prior to the season when I started my Instinctive Scouting LLC, he was the first one to jump on board. And he said, I'd love to have another guy in here, another good opinion to make us better. And like I said, I've known Bruce. I see him at All-Star games. We would talk. Then we got through the season, and we started getting in contact again. And, he started pushing him a little bit harder. So did I. And he thought it'd be worthwhile for me to come out here and sit in front of Dan, which I did. And like I said, it's the first time I ever met Dan face-to-face. And I didn't know what to expect, and I left there saying, this owner has it. He knows what he wants, and he's not going to waver. The resources are there. And from my standpoint, just being the Redskins, growing up, and just, seeing all the traditions, seeing the World Championships, seeing the Hall of Fame football players, and seeing the stadium sold out, and just rabid fans. It all fell into place for me right now, and I'm very excited to be here. I feel lucky to be here.
Scott, welcome. Dave Owens from WUSA 9, CBS DC. I'm just wondering, as you look at the roster, obviously that's one of the first things that you have to do. How much change do you think needs to happen to the roster to make it one that goes from where it is to obviously where you want it to be?
As of right now, I've been here less than 24 hours. I have not done enough tape work yet. I have a good idea about the roster, the players that are here. But for me, my style is very, very thorough. I'm not just going to make judgments right away and watch one game and say, okay, I think this guy can do this or that or that. It's a work in progress right now, but I got the East-West Shrine game, the Senior Bowl coming up in the next 2 weeks, and I'll jump back in here, and I'm just going to grind the tape from last season. And you get a good feeling. I'll meet with Jay, I'll meet with the coaches, and we'll start going from there. But as of right now, it would be way too premature for me to say anything about the roster.
Scott, John Keim, ESPN. At what point throughout this process did you, or from the last year or after the time you left Seattle, did you feel comfortable jumping back into this sort of environment and ready to take on this sort of job again?
The thing wasn't about ever being uncomfortable, because like I said, my entire life I've been in the NFL for 20 years. I grew up with my father, who spent 40-some years with the Raiders. My older brother played, and he works for the Raiders. It wasn't the fact of that. I've been thinking about the scouting service for probably 5 years. And getting through Seattle, winning the Super Bowl, I talked to John Schneider, who was GM, and I thought this was the time, to give it a shot and see what happens. A lot of people thought I was crazy about it. And I really enjoyed it. And the good thing about it was I wasn't as involved in the pro side with UFAs and RFAs this year, but I did a lot of college tape. I'm at my place back in the state of Washington, and have a pretty good feel for that right now, and I got a ways to go. I'm very excited about meeting the personnel guys here. I don't know a lot of them personally, but I come in here with positive feelings about them, and we're going to go through the whole process of free agency, the whole process of the draft, and then make decisions after that, if decisions need to be made. But I'm hoping to come in here and just be around a lot of good people in this whole building. I could already feel the passion yesterday, just walking through and meeting people. And I could see smiles. I could see, there's no reason why this team can't win. There's no reason at all.
To follow up on that, and I apologize for bringing this up, but you had a very public admission about some of the problems you've had in the past. How do you approach that coming into here? And it's a tough culture. So what's your, mindset with that and your approach with that?
I don't live in the past. I really don't. Even with my successes or my failures, I went through a family matter. It's very tough, and I learned a lot from it, both professionally and personally. It made me a better father. It's going to make me a better personnel guy because I've been through it. And some people in here have been through adversity. Mine was adversity. And and honestly, I'm kind of glad I went through it to realize who I am and what I have to be. And for me to be the best I can be is not living in the past, living in the future and going forward.
Hi, Rich Tandler, Comcast Sportsnet. Just kind of reading about things you've said in the past, things like that. One thing that keeps coming up is things like, if you have a vision, stick with it. What's your vision for what this football team is going to look like? Obviously, you want them to win, but a style of play, anything like that, maybe in 2 years from now.
The bottom line, from my standpoint, being a personnel guy, the lead personnel guy, is football players. Everybody says, okay, well, you need this, 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 and this, which I understand. A lot of times in pro free agency, you can address those needs a little bit. But, I learned from Ron Wolf early on. I learned from Ted Thompson early on. I learned from John Schneider. You can never have enough good football players on your team. If you keep adding that, you're going to have your couple, 2, 3 superstars that are going to come out and, just become stars. The core of your team's built from probably 5 to 35. And those are the guys that passionate, intelligent, consistent, competitive as all get out, and all they want to do is win.
And you've also talked a lot about football as a big man's game. You look to make a team bigger when you get here.
Definitely, I think at any position, if you all of a sudden you get to February and January and stuff, especially playing in this kind of climate, you need big guys up front. There's going to be bad weather games where you have to run the ball 30, 35 times. The places I have been, we've had success with big men up front on both sides of the ball. But also it was Seattle, big receiver or big DBs. Impressed. But we'll get into all the schematics after I sit down with the coaches and go through that. But I think it is a big man's game, but I think it's a football player's game. It's not about the height, weight, speed. It's about consistency and being a football player every day.
Hi, Liz Clark from the Washington Post. Welcome. If I could direct my question to Bruce. Bruce, when we met with you last week, you had said that you did not feel that having both jobs was too much on your plate, that it was fine. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate on how you came to the conclusion that the organization would be helped by bringing in someone full-time. It's such an important job with Scot's expertise.
Yeah, sure, Liz. Last year when Dan made me president of the team, we were looking for ways to improve the Washington Redskins, and it really was my responsibility to find any way we can improve the organization. What I did say last week was we are looking to add someone. We're looking to ways to add and change what we've been doing. When Scott became available and said he's ready to get into the saddle, that was really a no-brainer for us to pursue someone who has that type of talent. And we believe strongly that with Scott's vision and leadership, it's going to help the Redskins win, and that is our responsibility.
And my follow-up, since I don't believe have a chance to speak with Mr. Snyder, could you tell us if this was a conclusion you reached or a conclusion that Mr. Snyder reached, that Scott would be a helpful asset here?
Oh, sure. As I said at the beginning, I've known Scott for a long time. It's absolutely my recommendation to bring him in. I think he's the right person for this organization right now to help us win. And I did want him to meet Dan. I thought it was important not only for Scott to meet Dan, but for Dan to meet somebody who's going to have a critical role in the organization. And Dan said, do what you need to do and help in order to help this team win.
Scott, Mike Jones, Washington Post. Welcome. What was your assessment of Robert Griffin III, Kirk Cousins, those two quarterbacks when they came out of college? I know that you weren't here, but what was the grade or research that you had of them?
I don't want to get into past grades. I really don't. I thought they're both productive college football players, and they both had a lot of wins, programs that were good programs. But I'll leave it at that. Like I said, I need to get on this tape for now because that's 3 and 4 years ago. But I thought they're both high character individuals that had a chance to be good NFL football players.
And then when you're working with the coach, what's your philosophy on the give and take and deciding this is what we need and I think this is the better way? Or how do you work with the guy and find out the ingredients?
Like I said, I've been around from Mike Holmgren to Mike Nolan to Mike Singletary to Pete Carroll. When we've had success, it's communication on a daily basis. It's not about the one individual, it's about the sum of the parts. And that's just not dealing with Jay, but dealing with coordinators, dealing with position coaches, sitting with Bruce and talking contract-wise and all that. So it's a whole process. It takes time, but the one thing I do know, and the one thing I'm going to strive for is communication on a daily basis. Whatever we can do to make this organization stronger. There's going to be disagreements, and that's part of it. But there's strong enough people in this building with enough backbone to say, listen, okay, let's watch some more tape. I see this, you don't see that, let's do it because that's what we're here to do.
Hi, Scott. Tom Boswell from the Washington Post. Welcome. Bobby Beathard has had some really good things to say about you, and Washington fans know the Hogs, loved them, and have talked for years about when do we get a great offensive line again. Where do you find those players? How deep in the draft can you go? In other words, what's the process? You don't have to go with the 5th pick in the draft to get good linemen because you just talked about that.
Well, I know with our success in the past, especially interior linemen, but not only that, but tackles. But there's good football players. Every time we make a pick in each round, 1 through 7, there's going to be a football player on that board that's going to be a good NFL football player. It could be a safety, it could be a backup center, special teams, standout. So again, it's a process, and it's more of mentality. When you're talking up front, D line, O line, it's tough. I mean, you got to get in there and get dirty. You want to do the dirty work. But you got to be strong. You got to stay durable, and you got to be smart. And they're out there. And as you're well aware, all these Division I schools, Division II schools, there's good football players out there. You just got to find them.
And can you go over your relationship with the Gruden family in general, going back?
Well, I've known John a lot longer. I knew Jim just from my standpoint, and my dad being in personnel for a long time and meeting him before, and both quality guys. And my first time face-to-face was with Jay yesterday. But you see the same tendencies. You see the passion. You see the intelligence. You see the fact he wants to win and win now. And it's impressive. It's an impressive family. That's why they've had so much success in their life. Yep.
I'm Michael Phillips, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Bruce, can you elaborate for us on what your new role will be with the team?
Well, my new role is my old role. I'm the president of the football team, and I'm responsible for everyone with the Redskins. And it's my job to help improve this franchise and do everything I can to help everyone here be successful.
And Scott, obviously, I'm sure you've heard a lot about the Redskins. They're obviously in the national news a lot. What kind of assurances did you get that you'll have the time you need to see this job through and the resources that you'll need? Just,
like I said, knowing Bruce as long as I have and the high character he is, and then just sitting down with Dan for 6 hours at his house and going face-to-face. And we talk football the entire time, a little bit about food, but mainly football. But just because, I think one of the gifts I kind of have is be able to read people pretty quick and read through the BS, read through, serious. And to see the passion in his eyes and the excitement he gets to talk about the organization and the fans and winning, it was an easy sell.
Scott, Zach Boyer from the Washington Times. Welcome. This team is mired in a defensive coordinator search right now. You're hopping in midway through this process. How much involvement do you expect to have in that regard? How much will you leave that up to Jay to decide who he wants on the sidelines with him?
It's Jay's call. The head coach hires the coaches. If he needs a sounding board at all, I'll be there. But the head coach hires his coaches. They work for him.
And then off of that, in your past experience, how much do you find that the general manager and the head coach need to be pretty much in lockstep with what you guys need to do going forward?
It's very important. It's very important. And like I said, too, I mean, there's going to be disagreements, and that's part of the process. One day where I'm having a good day, he's had a bad day, and all of a sudden we see something different. The next day could be the opposite. That's why the communication is so important, and understand, listen, we're in this together. This is a family. We're going to win. We're going to lose together. It's not going to be, me stand up there saying I get to make the pick, or it's not going to be Jay stand up there saying I make the pick, or Bruce. It's going to be us, And the more good opinions you get around yourself, the better chance you have of being successful.
Hey, Scott, Brian McNally, 106.7 The Fan. How are you? Congrats.
Thank you.
Just wanted to ask you about your time in San Francisco. Obviously, that process took a while to get you guys to where you needed to be. I think it was 7 years before you made the playoffs from when you took over. Kind of building on Michael's question, how realistic and how do you juggle the expectations of the modern NFL and knowing it takes time to turn over a roster and bring in the players you want to build a playoff team?
It does. I know coming in here, this roster, from what I know about right now, was much more improved than the 49ers. And also we went through 5 coordinators in 5 years on the offensive side with a young quarterback. Things weren't just meshing, but you could see each year we were adding good football players. And you could see in the offseason how hard they worked and how important it was to them to be a family and grow together. And all of a sudden they hit the peak, and Coach Harbaugh came in there and they took off,
Follow up on kind of a different topic you referenced a little earlier, but what did you learn from Ted Thompson and Ron Wolf in Green Bay as a young scout? How did they influence your philosophy on building rosters, and what did you take from that experience?
The first thing I learned from both of them is do not dabble in free agency. It's always the draft, and I'm a little different. I'm a little more aggressive than that. But, the thing about Ron and Ted both, just so organized, what I'm saying, so structured, and they knew exactly what they wanted in a football player. And you know what? Every now and then they'd take a chance on a height, weight, speed guy and wouldn't pan out. But all of a sudden we're taking guys 5, 6, 7, interior linemen coming in. We're 5 to 8 year starters going to a couple Pro Bowls. So I think it's very methodical. You don't do knee-jerk reactions. You know, you're very, very thorough, not just from the standpoint of how they play on tape, but how they're wired. You know, what's the strength coach say? What's the trainer say? You know, what's people, other teammates who played with them the year before say? And I think once you get the whole portfolio kind of together, then you realize, you know what, this has got this kind of guy we want. This kind of guy we know is going to be consistent every day on the practice field. You know, and he might not be the best athlete or the fastest athlete, but you know what, you get enough those guys together, you're going to win more than you lose.
Joseph White with the Associated Press, and to continue on Brian's theme, it's easy for fans to wish that one guy steps in and suddenly all is sweetness and light, but the truth is you're taking over a big organization of staff and scouts with a roster that's won 7 games over the last 2 years. How long does it take for you stepping in this position to sort of mold things the way you want them to mold? Do you see this more as a long-range project?
Well, I don't think there's an exact answer for that, an exact date. I just promise you this. Starting this morning, I'm already doing everything in my power individually to make this organization stronger. The scouts are in there working right now. You know, the coaches are around working. And, you know, we're getting ready for all-star games. We're getting ready for free agency and getting ready for the combine. But you can't put an exact date on it. But I know this. If you get the right people in place, it's going to be quicker than later.
You talked about how you're a little bit more aggressive than say Wolf was as far as drafting free agency. But where do you strike that balance? Do you lean still more toward the importance of the draft over free agency?
I honestly think the draft's the lifeline of the organization. But also you got to understand, with free agency, that's a tool that you can use, and you can use it in a positive manner. You know, you start dabbling too much in free agency, sometimes you're getting older guys, you get, you know, medical history, you know. The thing I liked about what we did in San Fran, what we did in Seattle, we drafted our own, molded our own, and re-signed the ones we wanted to re-sign. You know, so all of a sudden now you train them how you want to train them. See, in Washington, we're going to draft these guys. We're going to draft them and mold them as Redskins. We're not going to have to go out to other organizations and bring in 32, 33-year-olds who have different plans. You know, I think the best case scenario is you draft and mold your own and re-sign your own. But free agency is still there to be used to make your roster stronger too. You can't lose sight of that.
Hey, Scott. Diana Rossini from NBC4 here locally. Bruce, you mentioned that you guys have been communicating over the season, and Scott claimed that he's ready to get back in the saddle. Scott, what questions were you asked by Mr. Snyder and Mr. Allen for you to ensure that you are ready, that you are personally together and ready to get back in the NFL dealing with the things that you had to deal with?
That's a good question. Again, my past relationship with Bruce, I think he understands my track record. And again, it's not all about me. It was me being able to surround myself with good people to help me in personnel. And the one thing of Dan was just incredible was just the fact, whatever it takes to win, let's do it. Let's do it no matter what. You know, they deserve, the fans deserve it, the players deserve it, he deserves it. You know, and just to see, when you see a guy's light up like his eyes light up like that, and just see, you know, not aggression, but you see him just getting excited like a little kid. It was cool as crud, you know.
His excitement, though, did he ask you any hard questions about you personally that you had to come back with? What can you give an example, maybe?
I'd rather not. That's a private conversation. But no, he grilled me pretty good, and I was expecting it, and I'm glad he did, you know, because I want him to know who he's getting as well.
Hi, Scott. Diane Cheesebro from Sports Journey Media. What do you think, once you get settled in here, what are your top priorities on what you think you need to do?
Well, first and foremost, like I said, in the next 2 weeks I'll be at All-Star games, and then getting back here and just getting to know this roster, going through the whole 14 season, meeting with the coaches as much as possible, and just seeing what we think we have and don't have. Now, when we approach this draft, you know, right now we have the number 5th pick. Again, I'm never in the assumption you draft for need. You draft the best football player on the board. You know, and people say, well, if you have this and this, why would you do that? Because, you know, in the long run, they're the ones going to help you win the most games.
That was my second question. You answered it for me. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Scott. David Elfin, David Elfin on Sports.com. Congratulations. I wondered, when you talked about the Niners being maybe in a worse shape personnel-wise we took over there than the Redskins are, but that team had won a little more recently. This team has basically not won for going on 2 decades. And I wondered, do you really understand the culture here that it hasn't been real positive for a long time?
You know, I haven't been around this culture a lot, but I do understand football. And, you know, and the one thing about it is every year just one team's going to win the Lombardi. and the salary cap there's going to be parity. So the better personnel moves you can make in free agency and in the draft, the quicker you can be moving forward. And as you've seen every year, we got to Seattle. Everybody's like, nah, a team from that region, they can't do it. It's a process, but again, it's football players, it's communication, and it's having a vision. And having a coach in place that is going to stand in front of the players and say, listen, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And there's no ifs and buts about it.
And from your 2 decades in the league, is there a particular pick that you're proudest of, or a moment you think, really, I did a great job here?
I would say it, but he's under contract right now, so I can't.
Lake Lewis Sports Journey Media, welcome to DC.
Thank you.
You've been responsible for, indirectly as well, with several Pro Bowlers over the organizations you've been with. What would you say to some of the young players on this team that aspire to be Pro Bowlers? What do you see in the guys that have become Pro Bowlers under your watch as far as their work ethic and things of that nature?
Same thing I've already mentioned a couple of times, just the passion for the game, the passion to get better, to do the extras, There's a lot of tremendous athletes out there in college football, and some of them that are so tremendous that they don't make it. Well, how come? And I'm lucky enough to be in this business long enough to realize, well, this is this and this. And other ones that weren't as talented who are still playing after 10-plus years. It's intelligence, it's toughness, it's competitiveness, and it's just the fact to understand this is what I do for a living. I want to be the best.
The second part is, this organization's had some turmoil recently. To the fans out there, what would you say the fact that you're have an owner here that will give you the resources you need? You have a young coach here who the players by and large like. So what would you say to the fan base out there as far as moving forward?
Well, if you're not winning games, there's turmoil everywhere, and that's just common knowledge. Just the fact that me being an outsider coming in, like I said, I knew Bruce, but to just sit down with Dan, and sit down with Jay yesterday, this place is right. And this is my 4th organization. Like I said, I've been around a couple of really good ones. This place is right. It's set to go the right direction.
Hey, Scott. George Wallace, WTOP Radio. You're going to have control over personnel department. Have you had a chance yet to either had any conversations with the staff that's here or think about bringing in guys that you've worked with in the past?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I've been here less than 24 hours. Anywhere from the personnel standpoint, I will go through free agency and through the draft with them, give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they can prove it. I'm talking to Bruce. He's got some guys he likes. Hopefully that pans out. From the coach's standpoint, I've just met with Jay. Like I said, less than 24 hours. They're doing their stuff. But I plan on meet with them and let them know that same thing I'm saying here. It's about us. It's about us. I got an open door policy. If we got disagreement, let's talk about it. No one says I'm right. No one says you're wrong. Let's get together and make sure we make the right decision for the organization.
And Bruce, as a follow-up, I know last week talked about A.J. Smith, possible expanded role. Is there any change in that, or have you had any conversations with him about his role moving forward?
Well, I've had conversations with A.J., and I think A.J. might have an opportunity with some of the openings, and we'll continue to have that dialogue. And Scott and I will see him at probably the Senior Bowl.
Scott, Chris Russell, ESPN 980 and Redskins Radio, welcome. What did you learn about yourself most over the last year as a man, as a football executive?
You know what? The thing I learned the most is that I still love to watch college tape and write reports, but I miss the competitiveness on Sunday. I miss the one team you're with. What I'm saying? You're getting out there, the national anthem's playing, now it's ready to go play ball. I miss that. I miss that. And I'm 43. Maybe when I get a little bit older in the 50s, I can do the scouting service again. But I want to get back in it. I love the competitiveness juice. Love it.
It's pretty clear based
50s isn't that old.
It's pretty clear based on your track record and obviously what you've just said, how much you believe in the draft. This organization, rightly or wrongly, has not been known for being very patient and for trying to quick fix things. How difficult will that be to balance, I guess, that past and the want to win that Mr. Snyder and Bruce have now with your kind of philosophy and kind of blend it all together?
Well, again, the past is the past. When I met with Bruce and I met with Dan, I laid my vision out. This, and not saying it's right or wrong. It's a vision I know. It's a vision I've been around for 20 years. Again, there's no right or wrong way, but they understand where I'm coming from, and they understand how important the draft is to me.
Scott Smith with Fox 5 here in D.C. You've talked about kind of sometimes the disappointment that comes with just looking at height, weight, speed guys. Curious how you look at the combine versus game tape in college, and what's kind of the happy medium there.
I think game tape's the DNA. That's it. You know, you don't play in t-shirt and shorts. You know, and all these kids nowadays get these speed trainers and nutritionists prior to the combine, and I don't blame them. If it gets some more money, get some more money. I always go back to the tape. I have to. That's the way I was taught. You know, that's you're going to see all of a sudden. You know, Georgia's playing Alabama. It's fourth quarter. It's 4th and 3. Who wins that line of scrimmage? That guard come off and get to play. You know, t-shirt and shorts, you can't see that. They might be able to bench press 25 times, 40 times. You watch them on tape, the guy has no strength. You know, so I think the tape to me is very important.
Also curious if you might be able to cite an example without, if you feel comfortable not using a name, but of a situation where you kind of went to bat for a guy where other people maybe in that same room weren't on board with what you were seeing.
Quite a few of them. And I wasn't always right either, I promise you.
Howard Fenderich with the AP. A question for Bruce. How did the team comply with the Rooney Rule during this search? And do you feel there is a place for that process in the league still today?
Well, yeah, I've supported the Rooney Rule for a number of years before it was the Rooney Rule, and we did comply with it. You know, this was a different type of search. We considered a lot of people and wasn't sure what type of role it would be. We interviewed a very, very qualified candidate and another actually excellent candidate, and the league says we've what's the word you're using? Qualified for with the rule, and as did John Wooden.
Paul Woody, Richmond Times-Dispatch, and I'd like to first say that 60 isn't that old either. But, it's pretty well documented that you were early on a fan of Russell Wilson, and I wondered before that where you came down in the Matt Flynn debate in Seattle.
Again, I don't want to get guys under contract with other teams. I can't do that. It's not legal.
Okay. I'm sure that everyone in the room would keep it among themselves if you wanted to.
Sure you would. I've been there and done it. I know better.
Okay. And I apologize. I'm not clear on the exact history. When you were in San Francisco, did you hire Harbaugh and?
No, he was already gone. I walked in. Mike Nolan had been hired 2 weeks prior to me being named vice president, player personnel, and then we had a split after two. Well, my second year, they named me GM. In that following year, I had to let Mike go, and then Mike Singletary took over.
So did you hire Mike Singletary?
Correct.
Second round.
Starting at this end. Do you, regarding the quarterbacks, obviously the 3 quarterbacks that the team used last year, how much do you have to liaise with Jay, obviously, to decide where to go in the quarterback? In other words, is a quarterback in the draft an open possibility for you, or do you consider Robert Griffin III the franchise quarterback going forward as he has been portrayed the last 3 years?
Well, from my standpoint right now, not seeing all the tape, any options open right now. Again, if we're going to draft somebody in the draft, it's going to be a good football player that we agree upon.
Bruce asked you about this. There were reports and rumors, I guess, that that A.J. Smith would take on a more prominent role in the organization. Is that accurate? Is that happening? Or is he going to have the same role that he's had the last year or two?
I think I addressed it earlier.
Sorry.
We're going to talk to A.J. down at the Senior Bowl. I think A.J. has some opportunities with some of the other openings right now.
Scott, I'm just curious, Zach Boyer again from the Washington Times. Could you take me through what you were doing your past year, the private consulting, the nature of things you were looking into, the players you're looking into, and who the teams were maybe that you were providing your reports for?
I cannot give the teams because it was confidential in the contract. But I was going through top 150 players. They had the bill to send me 150 players, any school, any position. So that's what I did.
Will training camp be under your umbrella, and do you have a philosophy? The Redskins have had it here. They go to Richmond currently on the road. Do you have a philosophy on what's best?
No, I just know, talking with Bruce, that he thinks it's a really excellent place to go to Richmond. That's all I know.
Scott, no one has ever questioned Mr. Snyder's enthusiasm or his willingness to provide resources, but many have questioned his patience. You said that he grilled you about your issues. Did you grill him about his issue with patience?
It was brought up, matter of fact, not by me, by Bruce, but and the answer was right, like I anticipated. You know, it's very important to him. I'm just going to say that.
Bruce, when we were talking about the Rooney Rule, you said that John Wooten said that you all did everything right, but he actually felt like there was some tampering, or that you all purposely didn't file the request with the league. What happened there?
We complied with all the league rules, and that's why the league said it. When you're interviewing people for the general manager or head coaching position, it's a notification, and we did notify them. And I talked to the team president of the New York Jets, Neil Glatt.
So did everything get cleared up with John Wooten then?
I believe
Because
so,
a couple
yeah.
days ago he was saying that he felt like you guys didn't go along with things the right way.
Yeah, I think and the league came out with a statement, said we complied.
Hey, Scott, Jason Reed, Washington Post. There was a really great piece on you in ESPN, the magazine, talking about some of your problems. And I can understand how you want to look forward, but can you understand how some people might have some concerns, like in the fans, people in the building, because of some of those problems, and the fact that in the piece you drink a beer in the piece, and you had mentioned some of the problems that you'd had. Can you see why people might have some concerns about that?
Certainly, and you know, like again, I did that piece because Seth, I've known for a long time, and people have been reaching out, and I thought it was good to get the truth out there. I'm not ashamed about it. I went through a tough phase in my life with my family, and I just tell you this: I grew professionally and personally, and it's got me to the spot I am today to be able to do this job. If I didn't think I could do it, I would not put Bruce or Dan in this situation whatsoever.
And Bruce, I mean, for you, obviously you hired him, so you were comfortable with it. But did you? I mean, were you aware of those problems before that piece ran?
Yeah, I was aware of them when Scott was going through his situation, and I did talk to him about it, and we had a very forthright conversation, and we're here to support him, and he would not be taking this job if he thought that was going to be a concern.
Thanks. Scott, from the time that you came to the realization that you really missed that Sunday thrill of having your own team, and today, did you interview or reach any serious stage of conversation with any NFL team other than the Redskins?
Yes.
Are you? Would it count as?
I'm not going to go into what teams, but
Okay, thank
the last 2 years I've gotten reached out quite a bit.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you did have some conversations with some other teams.
Yes.
And then if I could squeeze in a follow-up, you've explained clearly that you don't judge players simply by height, speed, all the
Those are nice
quantifiable
to have,
things.
don't get me
For
wrong.
sure, no
Yeah,
doubt.
I mean, that's-
But I want to ask about yet another category of attributes, if it matters to you and if you think it's germane, and that's, I guess, leadership or the likelihood that someone would be a good teammate, a good locker room character individual. Do you think that's an important ingredient overall for the success of a team? And if so, is that something you even attempt to gauge as you look at college players?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Even in pro free agency, you're always doing that. The majority of people in here could sit here and watch a college game or an NFL game. You can say, okay, those two guys played really well. That's the easy part to figure out, the physical skills. It's this and this that you really have to get into. And that's why the personnel department's so involved, especially on the college side, because they're out at the campuses, and they're talking to coaches and they're talking to trainers and all that. And you're never going to know 100%, but you can see things on tape their aggressiveness on tape or their strength on tape, and then all of a sudden you get the area scouts coming in for our meetings and they're saying, yeah, you know, he's the number one worker in the weight room. No one messes with him. You know, so it starts coming together. Yep.
Yeah, you were a part of two successful organizations, obviously, in Seattle and San Francisco. Are you going to try to bring some of that culture, some of the way they did things, some of their methods specifically of doing things to here to see how they work?
Green Bay was pretty successful too, but yeah. No, you know, from my own personal, yeah, from the standpoint of X's and O's with coaches, no. You know, I bring my philosophies that worked. And again, I've been very lucky to be around a lot of successful GMs, personnel guys that I learned a lot from. And, you know, and the one thing that I understand the most is you can't go into each year, okay, well, let's go this direction this time, you know. That's what we did in San Fran, and everybody's like, you have this talent, how come you can't win? You know, I said, we're going to stick to this vision. Things will get right, and they did. You know, but it's my own philosophy, and again, not right or wrong, but I just know communication is huge. I know hard work is huge, and I know getting high character, tough football players is huge.
Scott, one of the things that Mike Nolan said he thought you did well in San Francisco was hire good people around you, the scouts and all that. And you said you're going to wait, let that play out here. What is that you look for from that? I mean, you know, what are some of the qualities?
Well, you want a guy with a good eye, you know, but you also want a guy that he's bought in to listen. I'm a Washington Redskin, and this is who I work for. I'm going to do everything every day, even on the road, because they're outside, they're out of mind. I'm going to do the extra to make sure I get this organization as strong as possible. Character is very important to me. Honesty is very important to me. Loyalty is very important to me. You know, but it doesn't matter if it's a 4'2" scout or 8'7" scout. If they can get the job done and make us better, that's what I want.
Did you have any 8'7" scouts when you were there?
And where?
When did
no,
you
no. If we did, they'd be playing.
Okay. What's an ideal size for a staff for that?
It varies. You know, we had when I first started, it was 6 area guys, a director, and over the top guy in Green Bay, and then when I went to San Fran, I made sure I kept it the same, just because that's what I knew from Ron Wolf. But then in Seattle, we had 7 in a director. So, you know, I don't think it's about the amount of numbers. You got to make sure you don't spread them too thin. But it's just about getting good people, you know, getting guys that are intelligent and they live for it. Their passion is the NFL. Their passion is the Washington Redskins. You know, I like disagreements with them. I like their opinion, especially young guys. I want them to feel like they're doing their job right. You know. Yep.
Scott, you mentioned as far as Jay making the final decision on a defensive coordinator. Collectively, though, are there any coaches out there that, you know, their teams are still in the playoffs that you guys perhaps may take a look at?
That's Jay's answer. It's not me.
Have you thought, or would any upgrades to the facility come under your jurisdiction, locker room, places like that, things like that?
That would come under mine.
That's the president.
Like media facilities and things of that nature?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Just a coffee machine in there would be great. That's all we like.
Scott, with you believing so much in the draft, and that's a good thing, how difficult is it to determine one's football IQ and their instincts before you get them under your control, meaning before you select them, because this is obviously a thing that has been brought up here in the past?
Certainly, from the standpoint of being instinctual, a lot of it's just off of tape, you know, and then from the standpoint of having football intelligence, a lot of that's the area scout going to the same school twice a year, 3 times a year, talking to his contacts or coaches on the staff, and that's how you get that thing going. But from the standpoint of instincts, you get a pretty good feel off of tape. You watch 4, 5, 6 games, and the guy keeps making the same mistakes, you get a little worried. But all of a sudden you see, you know, linebacker having 15, 20 tackles a game. Something's going right instinctually.
Where do you stand on I guess, mobile quarterbacks and used in the zone read type of option that Robert Griffin has been used in the past, or Russell Wilson in Seattle? And where's the future for that in today's NFL?
You know what? That's a great question, because I go back and forth on that. I really don't know. The thing I do know is I've been around one that's lights out, you know, but it wasn't so much from the standpoint of athleticism. It's more of the it factor, the instincts for the position, the intelligence, you know. It's going to be the scheme that Jay wants to run, you know, and then coaches want to run, you know, and everybody wants to go because now all these in high school, they're doing the spread. Of course, colleges are doing the spread, you know, so they walk into the NFL with knowing that as their base offense, really. It's proven to work some, you know, but also I think you realize with the injuries, they're considered running backs most of the time now, you know, so you got to be careful because if you have one, you better have two.
Scott, was there a point where you worried or wondered whether you would get another chance at a high-profile, high-powered job in an NFL club's front office?
No, there wasn't. I just had to make sure it was right, you know, for myself, for my children, you know. That's first and foremost for me. I didn't want to jump back in something if I wasn't ready for it. So I went through my process. I went through my scouting service and realized it's time.
Hey, Paul, you're going to be the last one. Photographers, when he gets done, we'll move the table, and then we'll take a photo, okay? So, Paul, you're the last one. Go ahead.
Scott, I know you've talked about decisions being group decisions, decisions being Redskins decisions, decisions being family decisions. But there has to be someone who has final say. And on the 53-man roster, who has final say when it gets down to you and say, Jay, are you and the new defensive coordinator arguing, debating, whatever, about who to keep?
I have final say. But again, it's not going to be all about me. It's going to be a whole process. And we'll come to conclusion 99% of the time in the same person.
Okay, that concludes the press conference.